So I will move to the post-climate project, and this is more two projects that I will present. One is in Paris and the other in Normandy, so both in France. And it's about questioning the relationship and the responsibility that we have as architects toward the environment, and the massive, like a drastic shift, let's say, in our making of spaces and like cohesiveness with the environment. So this first project emerged as a question towards the feeding industry. It's a program that is developed into sustainable feeding, and it questions the waste that we have in our food industry, also the circular economy that is today not working because we just get food from the other end of the world. And dealing with that, let's say, theme as a kind of instigator of change to the way we live our environment. So the project is a response for the competition that Paris has launched for innovative projects. So the city of Paris decided to put a number of sites completely on an open competition for architects to come with developers, to come with a full team of users and propose innovative projects that could respond to the climate change, that could also be like a kind of avant-garde in orchestrating new programs. And the site that we responded to is just by the like 13th district, so it's the end of the Avenue de France, is next to Dominique Perrault's library, so it's just here. And the particularity of that site is also reflecting the other like lands that were put on the competition. It's on the fringes of the city. It's a very difficult site. It's very small. It's next to the station that was it's a derelict station, but it's also part of the little belt that goes all the way around Paris. This is where the old railway happened and the old train stations. And today is just like heaven for biodiversity. And we did this collage just to imagine like how can we make a place for sustainable feeding, a place that deals with food as a way to construct its architecture, but also to construct a program where people are aware that if we eat differently tomorrow, we have also a different impact on the planet. So we programmed the whole project. So I proposed to do a project around feeding, a place where we can cultivate, where we can learn about food, and that is all linked to circular economy. So it's a place of research, of innovation, of sharing, and of reuse. It's also a building, through its mixity, it has an impact that grows beyond just urban impact. It has an educative impact, it has an economical impact, social and environmental one. And one of the things that transformed completely my process of working as an architect into rather a circular way of working is the fact that I had the users from the beginning of the project. So the potential operators of such a project, like people from the market, associations of the neighborhood, and they had their say of the project from the beginning. So it's a non-linear process. And in a way, this non-linearity was also reflected in the program, in the way we would position the whole functions within that building. So with the tower, and this is the station next to it, this is the place where we would plant, where we would crop, live, and then transmit, eat, recreate, create a place for debate, and then recompost, and everything is working as one circular economy place. And from these actions grew a program where it's about agriculture, it's about interactive kitchen. So we would really have the possibility to plant and to crop and to recompost with the same place. Like we say in French, de la fourche à la fourchette. So it's really from the earth towards the mouth. And at the same time, this is a place also that grows in continuity to the ground and pulls out this ground over to the verticality. So it is shaped by the sun diagram, but it's also like inviting the ground to go and to rise and to become like a part of the building. So all the like ramps are just going all around and allowing the interconnection of all these levels. So it's kind of also a criticism to like modernist architecture, where we have this repetition of the same floor and instigating interaction within the same tower, where the floors become related to one another, and in a way bringing the history of that station in a ludic way, in a playful manner, into the facade of the building. So what we see, these ramps are all interconnecting all the levels, and they are also places of encounter between the inhabitants of that building. So they are places of serendipity, or like a kind of happy encounter. They link the levels. They are allowing the levels to be, in a way, functioning together, but also independently at the same time. And moving from here, the building itself is also a sustainable construction, because it's all wood construction, is locally sourced. All the water will be recycled and used for the agriculture. And the wood is locally sourced, is from France, and it's participating into the circular economy. Why wood is sustainable? Because when we use wood, we are assembling. We're not, we can also disassemble in consequence, so we can reuse the material in reverse way to the concrete that is always destructible and goes to waste. And from here also the food within is never wasted. It's composted and reused to nourish the agriculture in place. And then the water recycled, and also the inhabitants are part of the making of that project, with all the furniture that will be a pretext to create like a kind of connection with the inhabitants and interactive construction. So this is a place where we have 1,500 square meters of agriculture. We produce over 1 tons of products. It stocks carbon with the use of wood. It also reduces the carbon emission. It's 40% of gain of consumable waters. It's 100% of reuse of water and 80% of renewable energy. It's also an open story for mixity, for different scenarios to be constructed. And this is like a kind of a whole story that we made up with the building. And moving from these images to the construction, the first step was the model, and we did this in-house, and trying to, understand this complexity of the shape that we are proposing, and how these transparencies could work. And moving from this upper level, where we have agriculture that will be more dedicated to the research, towards this upper level of the station, where the agriculture is rather like open to the public. And then these ateliers pédagogiques, like the kind of educational spaces, the housing, and the encounter on the ramps, the interactive canteen, and then this kind of place where nothing is wasted, and the market is part of the life of the whole building. And here we just like had fun to kind of imagine animal life part of this building. So this is ongoing at the moment on a very slow pace. So now I showed some turtle project, what I call, because they like move on very slowly in the process. And along that same line of sustainable projects and pushing things even further is this factory, or I would say workshops, atelier that we are doing in Normandy in France. And this is like a manufacturing place, and it's in the northern part of France. And it's reflecting on the power of the hand, of the precision of the hand also, to work out material, and in that case, leather. And this kind of knitting that is so precise and so much also attention and passion given to the material while making. The minuteness of the material of the skin, but also the imprint that is invisible and always left on any object that is made. And all this had to be expressed next to a town that is very famous in brick construction, like ancestrally it was all constructed in brick. And on a site that is very Normandy, so it's very wet and very rainy there. And the landscape is so beautiful too because of that like quality of it. There's not much sun, but there's always this kind of moss that just emerges from the ground. So working along these lines was just like a part of our process, is to kind of think of all the words and all the concepts that had to be expressed in that project, moving from the urban side to the program to the object which is made within this manufacture, and to the like family that had to be expressed there, and trying to connect them in a way to create a complex field of understanding, but at the same time simplify that, so express the living space, the tool, transforming in a way the building into a tool of making, and then the time, because the building had to be able to grow also. It's not like a static building, it's a building that is able to become a system of growth. So trying to test this in model, and then the kind of obvious shape was this kind of simple grid that becomes the first instator for an architecture that could grow, that could like be endless in a way. The module can grow, can transform with the landscape, and it starts with this small module that is kind of changed, or there is an intervention on it to create circulation, and then to create plazas, and then to kind of create densities, and then to house the atelier within. So the idea was also to kind of create moments of openness, this kind of porosity of space where always the outside is part of the inside. So you would enter into a courtyard, move into a kind of a place of encounter, and then move into the atelier. And then from here, the material was a question, what to build with, to be sustainable, to be part of this landscape. And one obvious material was the brick, because brick is part of the area. And actually, not very far away, there are 3 brick ovens, like 3 brick factories. And they are all artisans working by hand. So the idea was to kind of reflect the idea of the precision of the making of the objects that are made within that manufacture into the making of architecture, and these brick that become part of the act of precision. But at the same time, it's a kind of bringing the trace of the gallop of the horse into the own facade of that building, because the obvious structure span that one constructs with the brick is actually the arch. So in a way, it's like kind of retracing, and the whole story of the making of the project is brought formally into the architecture. And what you see, just the slide before, is the fact that we have today technological tools in terms of structure calculation. We can really optimize the material and really know exactly how many bricks we would construct with. So it's very interesting, actually, this kind of complete meeting point between vernacular techniques of construction and completely technological ones. This is how the building appears, and then this is the courtyard. And just moving from there is also the landscape is using only natural techniques. So there are no plastic tubes, no ducting. It's just the landscaping that brings in the water and creates water ponds. And to just state more on the climate capacity and also the ecological aspect of that project, I like to show this diagram because it's very interesting to see how through a smart construction, both architecturally and technologically, we can really move from a highly consumption project into a project that is very passive. And this building is meant to be a passive building. So it's compact, it has its atelier on the north and to kind of light them in the best way, so to reduce the consumption of electricity. It's ventilated, it's vegetalized around, it's cross-ventilated, it's compact itself on its ground. And only by this kind of thoughtful thinking of architecture, first we reduce the need of consumption of the project. So we reach better the zone of comfort of individuals. And then we have less need to climatize that building and consume energy. And then the next step is to see what are the needs in terms of electricity and work for that manufacturer, and to compensate for that in solar panels and geotechnical and geothermal energy. So from here also, it means that we reduce 77% of our gas emissions of CO2. And moving further in that is using materials that are also like very low in gas and carbon emissions. So the building started construction, and among starting the construction, we discovered an archaeology. So it's like Magdalenian civilization there. And of course, the client tells me it's all your fault, the archaeology of the future is there. So, but yeah, I mean, they just took them out, and now we're starting that process. So all the bricks are being manufactured. And as you see, it's really the same color of the ground, so it's really magical anyway, brick construction, because it's just the ground of the place, and making a building really linked to the soil. This is the oven. We just seen the oven here, actually, and it's really magnificent all the time, like discovering these ovens, and like the artisan, like the industrial, explaining how it works. The manufacturer and all the people making the brick very proud of what they're doing. And this is the site. Now the archaeologists, they just like really transform it completely to dig in. So yeah, and this is how it looks at night. Maybe like in this part also we can make a small, make Andreas work a little bit.
E chiede se avete ancora domande, chiarimenti o se volete qualche traduzione su qualche punto specifico.
È possibile capire meglio la relazione tra reperti archeologici e questo intervento? Probabilmente mi è sfuggito un po' dal punto di vista linguistico, quindi servirebbe un po' più di traduzione, secondo me.
She would like to know which relationship there is in this project between the archaeology and the design of a building.
So here we just, the archaeologue actually in Normandy area is very known for prehistoric findings, and they dig down immediately at any site. So, and they've been looking for since 30 years for the remainings of Magdalenian civilization, and it happened completely by coincidence that they found here some parts of the civilization and a kind of house that existed there. There is also a teeth of horse. So of course everyone was very excited because the horse is the symbol of the manufacture and this part. Architecturally, the whole archaeology will not really be displayed in that place because it's not. It will be displayed somewhere else. But for me, there's a whole conceptual framework that is really interesting here because it's bringing the whole process that I do in making the projects becoming physical with this archaeology found. But physically, it didn't really change, let's say, the shape of the building.
Allora, dice che il fatto che hanno trovato delle scoperte archeologiche è una coincidenza, quindi non era una cosa correlata al progetto, però ha spiegato quanto importante fosse dal punto di vista archeologico perché la Normandia comunque ha una storia molto importante e quindi gli archeologi stavano cercando queste tracce di questa civiltà antica da molti anni, da più di 30 anni, senza mai averne trovato nulla e coincidenza, durante i primi scavi hanno trovato queste rimanenze, tra cui anche i resti di un cavallo, quindi lì è partita un po', diciamo, ulteriori ricerche e ulteriori scavi. E dice che comunque è un suo, è stato un po', tra virgolette, simpatico il fatto che loro come studio hanno una grande concezione, una grande attenzione al rapporto tra archeologia e architettura, e quindi questo, il fatto di in una loro architettura trovare l'archeologia è stato quasi, insomma, molto interessante.
Anyone else?
Se ci sono degli altri punti che non sono chiari, su cui volete qualche chiarimento anche di traduzione, non fatevi scrupoli a chiedere.
Dei reperti dal punto di vista magari con la sovrintendenza ci sono dei problemi, così il fatto di trovare dei reperti ha rallentato il lavoro, dal punto di vista proprio tecnico, così è stato d'intralcio il fatto di trovare dei reperti qua e anche altrove, perché sì, trovare dei reperti archeologici può essere importante, però dal punto di vista magari tecnico può essere anche un intralcio. Capisco che ho letto il suo rapporto con l'archeologia e tutto quanto, però dal punto di vista costruttivo magari può...
She's wondering whether it was a challenge or not dealing with authorities, especially archaeologists, in order to make progress with the project, and how it was technically dealt with.
It delayed the project a little bit, but actually we were supposed to start the site on June, and we started the construction in September, like just on the 4th of September, but the period of the COVID also kind of worked together with that. But the challenge was just that the archaeologist wanted really to dig the whole area to find, and there wasn't a need to kind of leave them or kind of stop the construction. It wasn't to that point important in terms of like a whole cité that hindered the construction. So yeah, it's just like the delay of time. And when we did the first stone, like not first stones, first brick actually, the archaeologist made the whole presentation about what they found and how important it is, and how this also for them is very symbolic, because it means the place has a kind of energy that is very important. But it was very emotional moment anyway. So.
E allora dice che il progetto doveva iniziare il cantiere a giugno, e poi questo ha creato un ritardo di 3 mesi e in realtà è iniziato a settembre. Questo è anche coinciso col periodo un po' delle chiusure Covid, eccetera, per cui non ha impattato molto nel programma dei lavori. E ha detto che i ritrovamenti non erano così importanti da impedire il proseguio del progetto, quindi poi continuerà, anche se, ha detto, gli archeologi che hanno fatto i primi ritrovamenti erano molto emozionati di questa cosa, proprio perché stavano cercando da tempo tracce di questa civiltà, e quindi è stato molto bello vederli così emozionati nei ritrovamenti.
Volevo chiedere, distaccandomi dall'archeologia, per quanto riguarda il rivestimento della facciata in mattoni, se la scelta quindi del proporre degli archi in facciata era data dal mattone, pensando a Luis Cane che chiedeva il mattone che doveva diventare, lui diceva un arco, oppure se era invece un semplice rivestimento. Probabilmente me lo sono perso nella traduzione.
Sì, allora in realtà nella presentazione lei ha spiegato che l'uso del mattone è un uso strutturale, e quindi la forma naturale per poter creare delle strutture, delle aperture, era quella di creare un arco. He asked whether it was your choice of cladding the brick.
Cladding.
Nessun rivestimento.
Yeah, I know. It's like the whole challenge was really to build in brick, and it transformed the way we make architecture, because you have to I thought like when we used brick, actually it's much more challenging because you have to draw the building brick by brick, and all the proportion of the building has to follow the brick, and you have to also the arch, the shape, the structure. But it's really wonderful because you get into the technicity of the architecture, which is why architecture exists as well. So yeah, it's all structure. Yeah.
Allora dice che l'uso del mattone è completamente strutturale e che è stato molto bello diciamo, progettare un edificio strutturale in mattoni proprio perché loro hanno voluto evitare qualsiasi taglio e quindi tutto l'edificio parte dal singolo mattone, viene composto mattone a mattone e quindi tutti i dettagli, le curvature degli archi, le lunghezze delle pannellature in laterizio rispettano il modulo del singolo mattone.
It's also like a kind of relation with the precision of the hand
Sì, quindi c'è un rapporto molto stretto con la precisione delle mani, che sia di quello che ha fatto i mattoni, ma anche diciamo una metafora degli artigiani, perché questo è un laboratorio di artigiani di Hermès, la ditta di moda, e quindi questo rapporto tra la manovalanza, cioè l'artigianalità di mattoni con l'artigianalità del pellame che ci sarà all'interno dell'edificio.
Shall I move to the post-war and then after we loop into the old questions, this is the last part.
Dopo ci saranno ulteriori domande se volete, adesso volevo partire con la terza parte della presentazione.